Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Secret Beneath the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount is one of the holiest places in the world, situated in the city of Jerusalem. It's regarded with great respect by Muslims, Christians, and Jews, and has been for thousands of years. The Temple Mount itself isn't underground. It's a flat plaza surrounded by a few stubby retaining walls that were built in the 1st century BC by King Herod. There is no physical temple here because it was destroyed by the Romans. The temple built by King Herod was constructed to replace the original temple built by King Solomon in 957 BC. Both were obliterated, and only small pieces of the walls remain, with the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock being the only structures standing in the ruins. However, there is more underground that is still hiding beneath the surface. In 1864, a team of British surveyors began to examine the polluted water supply that was making people in the holy city sick. They were given unprecedented access to places all over Jerusalem because they needed to figure out a way to keep the water flowing. They soon learned that most of the water tanks needed to be abandoned because they were very outdated, but they also made some unexpected archaeological discoveries along the way. They examined tanks hiding underneath the Temple Mount and found an underground temple structure. Extensive investigation showed that beneath Temple Mount are water cisterns that were converted from earlier ruins of what appeared to be subterranean mosques and unidentified buried temples. Unfortunately, Temple Mount is considered too holy of a place to dig up. There does appear to be something down there, but there is no way anyone will allow an excavation to take place. Maybe in the future they can use technology to perform a non-invasive scan? Number 9. The Gujarat Upwells. India's underground water temples resemble something straight from a fantasy novel. The mysterious stepwells of Gujarat are not temples dedicated to any deities. They are architectural marvels that date back over 1,000 years. The stepwells were built starting around 600 AD, and there are over 120 of them in India. These are inverted temples dug deep into the ground like massive well shafts, but a little more sophisticated. They were used to collect water in ancient times during the monsoon season. When the monsoon poured down, the water would be collected in these megalithic underground structures. With a huge supply of water, the locals could walk down the staircase and collect it in jugs to bring back home. These water temples allowed entire communities to survive the brutal seasons without rain. These stepwells were also used for socialization and bathing. In the scorching heat of summer, locals could gather in an underground temple where it was significantly cooler. They would also cool off by taking a bath, which turned the temple water a little bit dirty. I don't know, would you risk it? Let me know in the comments below. Number 8. Mogal Caves. One of the largest, most spectacular, and least known underground sanctuaries in the world is a place called the Mogal Caves, sometimes known as the Caves of the Thousand Buddhas. It's a system of almost 500 temples, built at what was once a crossroad on the legendary Silk Road. The history here spans a whopping 1,000 years, with the Buddhist sanctuaries carved into solid rock. Here you can find at least 492 cells that were used for the monks' dwellings. The caves are located near the Dunhuang Oasis in China's Gansu province. According to UNESCO World Heritage, the Mogal Caves contain the largest and longest used treasure house of Buddhist art anywhere. Construction began in 366 AD and continued up until the 14th century. Within the treasure house are 2,000 painted sculptures, many of them still almost as vivid as the day they were finished. The artwork depicts images of camels pulling carts along the Silk Road, workers in the fields toiling for food, and warriors fighting in great battles. What's really interesting here is that we can see how Buddhist art and culture changed century by century. By dating the sculptures and various scenes painted inside the caverns, we can start to put together a kind of tapestry of history. In 1990, researchers stumbled upon a cave unlike any other. They call it the Library Cave because it contained tens of thousands of manuscripts, hailed as the Oriental version of the Dead Sea Scrolls. The manuscripts have since been examined by experts who have learned significant information about the complex history of ancient China. The cave stopped being used as a Buddhist sanctuary around the year 1930, and by then, all the monks had left, and the place was largely forgotten. Number 7. The Hypogeum. The Hypogeum in Malta is arguably one of the best preserved prehistoric places in the world. It's an impressive underground complex that includes a temple, a cemetery, and a funeral home. It dates back 6,000 years to a time when humans in the Mediterranean were starting to contemplate the afterlife. In 4000 BC, the people of Malta began to create their own rituals surrounding the death of their loved ones. They put their energy together to create one of the first megalithic tombs, which would later become the Hal Saflieni Hypogeum. The builders carved through 3 miles of limestone underneath what is now the capital city of Valletta. They incorporated natural caverns into their design, and over the centuries continued to dig deeper, building as they went. The temple they constructed here would be in use for the next 1,500 years. During that time, megalithic structures began to appear on the surface all around the Hypogeum. This underground temple and cemetery was the beginning of a wave of stone circles and ritual structures across Malta. The majority of ritual activity took place in the middle level of the underground structure. Inside the oracle room, a chamber that measures more than 15 feet long, there are niches in the walls that work to amplify sound like in an amphitheater. Nobody knows what went on in this secret chamber, but it likely had to do with acoustics. The lowest level of the structure reaches 33 feet into the earth and is made up of 5 spaces, each less than 16 feet in diameter. These spaces allow access to smaller rooms that once served as mass graves. Pretty spooky, right? Number 6. Wealthiest Hindu Temple. The Sri Padmanabha Swami Temple is considered by the Guinness World Records to be the wealthiest Hindu temple in India. It may even be the richest Hindu temple in the world. And it's all thanks to a series of secret underground cellars discovered beneath the temple containing a staggering treasure of gold, silver, and gemstones. This temple is located in the Indian state of Kerala, and it was dedicated to the deity Vishnu when it was built between the 6th and 9th centuries. It's one of the most important places in the Hindu religion, just like how St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City is one of the most important churches in Catholicism. The Kingdom of Travancore ruled the area briefly starting in 1729. Legends circulated ever since that they hid an enormous amount of wealth inside vaults underneath the temple. Then, in 2011, researchers made headlines when they discovered treasure inside secret underground chambers. But it was controversial from the start. Some said the treasure was cursed and that the vaults shouldn't be opened. Some feared they were full of cobras, and the first person inside would be bitten to death. In the end, the chambers were opened anyway, and all the treasure was taken. Thankfully, nobody was bitten by cobras. There was so much treasure that an underground museum had to be built just to show it all off. Number 5. The Temple Under the House. Not every underground temple has to be ancient. Levon Arakelian was the mastermind behind his own personal temple, and his story starts in 1985. He was 44 years old when his wife asked him to dig a potato storage pit underneath their home in a small Armenian village. It seemed like a good idea, so Levon started digging. However, he wouldn't stop for the next 23 years. According to Levon himself, he experienced a series of religious visions and dreams. In these visions, he was told by a voice to keep digging. And as he listened, working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, his chisel began to form a luxurious temple in the solid black basalt rock. There is now a huge underground temple beneath Levon's house, reaching a shocking depth of nearly 66 feet. There are 7 interconnected rooms within the structure itself. There is also a staircase made from solid stone, and walls decorated in mosaics and sculptures. If you didn't know this thing was built recently, you would think it was thousands of years old. Levon continued to work on his project until the day he died in 2008 at the age of 67. He suffered a heart attack, which his wife said was likely due to the hard work and lack of rest. Still, the temple is underneath the house, and it's now a popular tourist attraction. Number 4. Underground Church. The largest underground church in Europe is the Church of Saint-Jean at Albert-sur-Dronne. It's a massive subterranean structure that was carved by hand out of a solid rock hill in the 12th century. Few underground churches can compare to the brilliance of the Church of Saint-Jean. Without physically being inside the church, it's difficult to understand just how big it really is. The main room has 2 huge columns that rise 60 feet to the ceiling. There's a winding stairway carved perfectly out of the rock, leading to an upper viewing room where you can look down into the main chamber through an interior window. According to legend, the underground church was originally built as a holding place for religious artifacts. A Roman reliquary, a container for holy relics, was discovered by fighters in the First Crusade, suggesting the church was used by the Romans long before the Christians, or at least long before the Romans became Christians. The church also contains a small cemetery adjacent to the main room that holds 80 sarcophagi, most of which are 800 years old or more. Definitely want to put this place on my bucket list. Has anybody been here? Let me know in the comments below. Number 3. The Underground Shrine of Paestum. There is an underground shrine in southern Italy and nobody knows what it's there for. It's in the ancient city of Paestum, originally occupied by the Greeks over 2,500 years ago. The shrine has been dated to roughly 510 BC. It's small and embedded in the ground so that it looks like somebody's tiny house was buried in an avalanche. The shrine is situated between the Roman Forum and the Temple of Athena, near the Via Sacra, the main street of ancient Rome. There was originally an entrance to the shrine, but it was only used briefly to place ritual offerings inside. Then the entrance was sealed off, and the shrine was purposely buried. When archaeologists excavated the structure, they found the remains of something that looked like a bed. They also discovered vessels filled with what may have been honey, and a small collection of ancient bronze jars that must have been worth a fortune. The shrine was identified in 1952, and impatient archaeologists entered it by smashing through the roof, all because they couldn't find the buried doorway. The best guess anyone has these days is that the shrine was a symbolic tomb of an unknown hero. First, it was a sacred shrine, then later it was buried to emulate a tomb without a body. All of the artifacts and offerings that were found inside of it are now on display at the Archaeological Museum in Paestum. Number 2. The Cinque Vecchie Temple Cave. Nobody knows what the purpose of the Cinque Vecchie Temple Cave was. It's also a mystery as to who built it, and the strange deity that was worshipped within it is also unknown. The cave can be found on the outskirts of the small Roman village of Cinque Vecchie. It's such an odd and obscure place that the locals often refer to it as the Temple of Destiny. The site has been there for roughly 7,000 years, placing it way before the Romans ever formed their republic. And yet it was used by many different types of people throughout the centuries. There is a weird collection of religious symbols inside the underground structure. There you can find the yin-yang symbol from China and the Star of David. However, there are no Christian crosses here, even though there is other evidence of Christian habitation. Although the structure is underground, light penetrates its dusty depths through a series of chimney-like skylights. Some believe the chimneys weren't meant to allow light in, but to let in holy energy from outside. Many people who visit this place say they can feel a kind of supernatural energy humming inside their bodies. Unfortunately, we still don't know the true history of the cave temple. There are some historical records from 1700 saying it was used to bury monks from Transylvania. However, there are also rumors that it was inhabited by alchemists in the medieval ages and was used by Jews as a place of worship centuries earlier. Number 1. The London Mythream. The London Mythreum is the most impressive Roman sanctuary of Mithras outside Rome itself. It's an ancient temple dedicated to the mystery god known as Mithras, who captivated the world as a secret underground deity over 2,000 years ago. Mithras has origins in ancient Iran, and he was the Persian god of light, justice, and the sun. He was worshipped as far back as 1400 BC, maybe even earlier. He became one of the head figures of Zoroastrianism, a much older religion than Christianity, Islam, or even Judaism. It was around the same time that Christ was born that the cult of Mithras became sensational throughout the Roman Empire. They took inspiration from the Iranian deity and created their own Roman-style secret religion. It was so covert they had 7 grades of initiation, as if those who wanted to worship had to join a fraternity. There were communal rituals, and the practitioners of the faith met in highly exclusive underground temples all the way from Roman Syria to Roman Britain. Unfortunately, the Romans didn't write anything about the Mithraic mysteries down. It was against the rules to record what happened during the rituals, and so we have no written evidence of what went on with the cult of Mithras. But we do have Mithraeums scattered throughout the world. The one in London was discovered during construction in 1945. The temple was originally thought to be a Christian church, but they eventually found out that it was built in the 3rd century AD by a cult group of Mithraic worshippers. Thanks for watching! How would you feel if you had to go to church in a dark underground temple? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you soon! Bye!